The Baltimore Ravens shook the NFL world with a flurry of moves that not only reshaped the roster, but also made one thing crystal clear: they're not standing still. After a brutal 1-4 start to the season, the team's leadership finally made bold decisions, signaling either a desperate push to salvage the year or the beginning of a larger teardown. And no matter which direction they ultimately go, Tuesday's moves made one thing obvious: change was no longer optional. It all started with the surprising trade of Odafe Oweh. Once a first-round pick filled with raw potential and sky-high expectations, Oweh never quite lived up to the billing in Baltimore. From day one, he was a gamble, a player with freakish athleticism but limited college production, especially in terms of sacks. The Ravens took that swing, hoping to mold him into the next dominant edge rusher. But outside of a handful of moments, like his game-sealing forced fumble against Kansas City early in his career, the flashes never turned into consistency. In 2024, the numbers were damning: 10 tackles in 5 games, 0 sacks, and minimal impact. The trade sent Oweh and a 7th-round pick to the Chargers in exchange for safety Alohi Gilman and a 5th-rounder. At first glance, it's not a blockbuster deal. The Ravens gave up a recent first-rounder and got back a solid but unspectacular safety, plus minor draft compensation. But when you look deeper, the move speaks volumes. It wasn't just about Gilman. It was about clearing over $7 million in cap space. It was about freeing up snaps for younger, hungrier players. And more than anything, it was a public admission by General Manager Eric DeCosta: this pick didn't work out. It was time to cut the losses. And then came the second bombshell: the signing of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Now that's a name. A player known as much for his trash talk as his playmaking, Gardner-Johnson brings edge, swagger, and experience to a Ravens secondary that has lacked all three. Just a year removed from leading the NFL in interceptions while helping the Eagles reach the Super Bowl, his arrival in Baltimore couldn't have come at a better time. The Ravens' defense, once feared across the league, had become a shell of its former self. They couldn't stop the run, couldn't get pressure, and couldn't make the key stops in crunch time. Gardner-Johnson may not be a cure-all, but he's a start. He adds attitude. He brings championship pedigree. And most importantly, he gives Baltimore options. Because the move isn't just about what Gardner-Johnson does, it's about what it allows others to do. Namely, Kyle Hamilton. The Ravens love using Hamilton near the line of scrimmage, where his blend of size, instincts, and physicality makes him a nightmare for opposing offenses. But with the team's safety depth depleted, Hamilton had been forced into more deep coverage responsibilities, limiting his impact. Now, with Gardner-Johnson and Gilman in the fold, Hamilton is free to move back into the box, where he can blitz, disrupt, and make plays all over the field. These aren't random moves. These are calculated adjustments, driven by desperation but rooted in strategy. After 5 weeks, the Ravens' flaws weren't just visible, they were glaring. The defensive line was getting gashed. The edge rush lacked juice. The secondary was miscommunicating and missing assignments. Something had to give. And on Tuesday, it finally did. But here's the real twist: Tuesday's actions might just be the beginning. The Oweh trade and Gardner-Johnson signing didn't just reset the roster. They opened the door for more. The Ravens now have extra cap space and a little more draft flexibility. That means they can go in 2 very different directions. One option: push all the chips in. Package picks. Add a big-time defensive lineman. Find a tackle who can plug the hole up front. Give Lamar Jackson the reinforcements he needs, and try to make something out of a year that has started with disappointment. The other option: start unloading. Trade away players who won't be part of the future. Stack up draft picks. Reset the roster around a younger, cheaper core. Either way, the next few weeks will tell us everything we need to know. Internally, the tension is real. If you're head coach John Harbaugh, you're not sitting around waiting to rebuild. You want to win now. Your job might depend on it. And if you're Harbaugh, you're pounding on Eric DeCosta's door demanding more help. Forget draft picks. Forget next year. You've got Lamar Jackson in his prime. You've got veterans who aren't getting younger. If this season tanks, it might be the last one with this regime in charge. So if the question is, should the Ravens go for it? The answer is yes, 100% yes. That urgency was written all over Tuesday's shakeup. Oweh was underperforming. The coaches saw it. The snap counts told the story. Over the last 3 weeks, he had been losing time to guys like Tavius Robinson and Mike Green. And for good reason. Robinson might be raw, but he's playing hard and showing flashes. Green has been steady. And with veteran Kyle Van Noy in the mix, Baltimore clearly felt they had enough to survive without Oweh. So they pulled the plug. Not because it was fun, not because the return was amazing, but because it was necessary. That's the mindset that has to carry forward now. Necessary moves, hard decisions, honest evaluations. Because this team, this version of the Ravens, was supposed to be a contender. All offseason, we heard about how the roster was better than ever, how Lamar finally had the weapons, how the defense would take the next step. But 5 games in, it all looks hollow. The run game is inconsistent. The pass protection is shaky. The defense is getting gashed by quarterbacks with far less pedigree than the ones they'll see in the AFC playoff picture. If this team wants to live up to the hype, it can't keep pretending everything is okay. And that's why the next move is just as important as the last. Maybe it's a splash trade. Maybe it's another roster shakeup. Maybe it's something more subtle. But standing still cannot be an option. You've already admitted the problem. Now you need to fix it. Because Lamar Jackson didn't sign a long-term deal to waste prime years stuck in mediocrity. Because your fan base didn't buy into Super Bowl or bust expectations to watch another early exit. And because if you do nothing, people will lose their jobs. That's the cold reality of the NFL. Winning hides flaws. Losing exposes everything. So now the pressure is dialed up to the maximum. The Ravens front office doesn't just have a decision to make. They're staring down a crossroads that could define the rest of this season and possibly the next few years. You've got 3 very different routes in front of you. Push for a win-now strategy, start a soft rebuild and stack assets, or stand pat and trust internal development to carry the load. The problem is, standing pat might be the same as waving the white flag. Let's be honest, this is not a time for patience. Not when you have Lamar Jackson under center. Not when you've sold your fans on a team that's built to win now. And certainly not when your head coach and general manager are sitting on seats that are getting warmer by the week. The fact that the Ravens are even having this conversation after just 5 games is a sign of how far things have unraveled since the season kicked off. The idea of Baltimore starting 1-5 and doing nothing is almost unthinkable. But if they lose to the Rams and fail to make a statement in the next few weeks, the idea of blowing it up becomes more real by the day. That's why this decision-making period is going to test everyone. If you're Harbaugh, you're begging DaCosta to cash in those picks. To get you help right now. Because Harbaugh knows if this season crashes, he might not survive it. That contract extension he signed doesn't mean much if the team finishes near the bottom of the AFC. Coaches don't get years to fix failures in a league that moves this fast. And with the AFC North being as brutal as ever, the Ravens don't have time to slowly climb back into relevance. They need help immediately. A playmaker on the defensive line. A stabilizer on the offensive front. Someone who can shift momentum. And those guys don't come cheap. On the other hand, DaCosta is probably looking at the boardroom numbers. He's thinking about draft flexibility, long-term cap structure, future-proofing the roster. But you don't future-proof anything if you lose your quarterback's confidence and your coach's job. Because let's not forget, Lamar Jackson is watching all of this unfold. This was the year the organization promised him real support. It was the year he finally got the big contract, the weapons, the offensive coordinator he believed in. If the team starts unloading players or hesitates to act aggressively, what message does that send to your franchise quarterback? If he starts to feel like he's being asked to carry a broken roster, how long before frustration sets in? That's what makes this so tricky. The wrong move, or no move at all, could create ripples that last far longer than this season. And the locker room knows it. Players pay attention. They see who's being shipped out and who's being brought in. They know when the front office believes in the group and when they're quietly planning for next year. These guys aren't blind. If more veterans get moved or the team fails to bring in needed reinforcements, the message is clear: we're not all in. And that can deflate a team faster than any loss. Which brings us to the uncomfortable reality of Odafe Oweh's tenure in Baltimore. He wasn't just a disappointment. He became a symbol of the Ravens' recent drafting issues at key positions. For every success story like Kyle Hamilton or Tyler Linderbaum, there's been a swing and a miss. And Oweh was a big one. Selected with high hopes, he simply never became the dominant pass rusher they needed. The flashes were always there. The athleticism, the burst, the glimpses of chaos. but they never translated into consistent production. And once he started falling out of the rotation in favor of guys like Robinson and Mike Green, the writing was on the wall. The Ravens had made their choice. He wasn't the future. By trading him now, they're betting that someone else will unlock that potential and that it won't come back to haunt them. But they're also admitting something much bigger. They need to get tougher up front. The edge group now looks thin and uncertain. Kyle Van Noy can still contribute, but he's not a long-term solution. David Ojabo has struggled with injuries. Trenton Simpson might be asked to do more, but he's still raw and learning, which means this defense is not close to being fixed yet, not without another big move. And the truth is, the defensive line might be the biggest weakness on the entire roster. They can't stop the run. They don't generate interior pressure. And the moment they face a competent offensive line, everything collapses. That was on full display against C.J. Stroud and the Texans, who moved the ball at will. There was no penetration, no disruption, no fight in the trenches. That's not just a scheme problem. That's a talent problem. And unless it's addressed, nothing else matters. You can sign all the safeties you want, but if the quarterback has 5 seconds to throw and running backs are gaining 6 yards before contact, your season is toast. That's why fans are clamoring for DaCosta to get aggressive. Go get a difference maker. Trade a first-rounder if you have to. Bring in someone who can change the math at the line of scrimmage. Because right now, the math doesn't work. And this idea that you have to win the trade every time? Forget it. You're not in a position to be picky. You need impact. You need urgency. You need to swing for something, anything, that can stabilize this roster and give Lamar Jackson a real shot at leading a comeback. Because let's be clear, the window is not closed. Not yet. 1-4 is bad, but it's not fatal. But you can't waste time. The AFC is too competitive. The schedule is too brutal. You can't try to develop your way out of this. Not in October. Not with jobs on the line. And certainly not with a fan base that's already fed up with seeing another slow start. Now, with C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Alohi Gilman joining the mix, the defense at least looks deeper in the secondary. And maybe, just maybe, that helps unlock Kyle Hamilton again. Because he's the one guy on defense who can turn games around by himself. But he can't do it from 20 yards deep. He needs to be near the action, where his instincts and physicality can impact every play. That's what Gardner-Johnson and Gilman give you. Not just their own talent, but the ability to let Hamilton go be a weapon. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. Whispers are spreading fast through the NFL circles, and if the latest rumor is true, it could reshape the landscape of the league in a way few expected. Sources close to the situation claim that Shedeur Sanders, the rising star quarterback who has been the center of countless draft speculations, has made a shocking decision. He has accepted an irresistible offer from the Baltimore Ravens. The buzz started earlier this week when insiders hinted at intense negotiations between Sanders' camp and the Ravens' front office. Known for their aggressive approach to building championship-caliber teams, Baltimore reportedly pulled out all the stops, offering a package that Sanders couldn't refuse. While the exact details remain under wraps, whispers suggest the deal includes a record-setting contract for a rookie quarterback, coupled with guarantees that would place him immediately in the spotlight as the team's potential franchise leader. Fans and analysts alike are scrambling to process the implications. The Ravens, traditionally cautious in their quarterback strategy, could be signaling a bold shift in philosophy. With Lamar Jackson's future uncertain and the team entering a pivotal rebuild phase, adding a talent like Sanders could represent the perfect storm of opportunity and hype. Imagine Sanders stepping onto the Ravens' home turf, bringing his electric play style and high football IQ to a franchise hungry for a new era of dominance. Of course, not everyone is buying the story just yet. Skeptics point to the timing and question whether the buzz is part of a clever media strategy designed to boost interest and fan engagement. Yet, multiple sources hint that the momentum behind the rumor is genuine. Even veteran insiders are reportedly stunned at the speed with which negotiations advanced, with Sanders' camp said to be thrilled and convinced by the Ravens' pitch. As the story develops, social media is already ablaze with speculation, memes, and hot takes from fans across the league. From Ravens supporters dreaming of a dynamic new duo to rival teams bracing for potential upheaval. The chatter is impossible to ignore. One thing seems certain. If Shedeur Sanders really has accepted Baltimore's offer, the NFL offseason just got a lot more electrifying. Whether this is the beginning of a historic quarterback story or just another rumor to fade with the summer heat, the buzz around Sanders and the Ravens is undeniable, and fans everywhere are on the edge of their seats, waiting for the official confirmation that could change everything. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.